Well, hello everyone, and welcome to part one of our series, How to Lose 20 Pounds of Bad Data. My name is Libby Ziemilis, and I'm going to be your super admin host for all of these sessions. This training is being recorded, and the recording, along with detailed notes from this presentation, will be available on Zendesk following each of the sessions. You will also see a slide deck in the handout section of this GoToWebinar. Today's focus is going to be an overview of data. Each session in this series will build on the one before. To be respectful of everyone's time commitment of a maximum of 20 minutes, while I will welcome questions in the chat box, I will not be responding to them during my presentation. While other hands-on team members may be responding, please keep in mind that your question may be answered at a later training. Feel free to join us during a lab hour to chat or open a Zendesk ticket with your questions. This will be a jam-packed, info-packed series with the goal of getting you thinking about the data in your system. Remember, the information that you get out of your system is only as good as the data you put in. There are going to be a couple times during my presentations where I'm going to ask you to participate in a couple polls. And the first one, I'm going to actually need you to be logged into your system. So if you can and you're able to, go ahead and do that now so you can be ready when I put you on the spot. All right. Sometimes thinking about any data can be overwhelming, but it is really important. It is a really important part of having an effective system. A good starting point for knowing where you are is learning how much data you have in the first place. To find out your storage usage while logged in as a system admin, we're going to go ahead and find out how to learn about your data. So to find out where you're at, go ahead and click on Setup. And then on the quick find on the left-hand side, we're going to type in storage usage. So storage in Salesforce is broken into two types. You have data storage and file storage. This top section here looks at these two main types of storage and gives you an overview of where your system is at right now. So in this system, we can see that the limit, we have a gig of data storage, and this is how much is used. Then it breaks it down by percentage. When we move down a little bit, we can see this broken down by object, and then further down into the number of records. This is sorted by most storage down to the least. So you can see there's a lot of objects in the system, and you can see how many records are for each of those. The most records that we have are in the connections object. We can see that of our 45% of data, 36% of that are connections. So remember how I asked you to log into your system? Well, now is the time for you to do that. So you're going to have an opportunity to go ahead and log in, and you should be seeing a poll on your screen. I'm curious to know what percentage of your system is available. How much have you used in your system? I am going to head and give you guys a few seconds. We have some people who are starting to vote, so awesome. We're going to close this over here. I'm just going to give you a few more seconds. I don't know if you can hear my fun music in the background, but okay. Just a few more seconds. Oh, awesome. Thanks so much for people for participating. Just 10 more seconds. All right, awesome. Thank you. Hopefully that I gave you enough of an opportunity to share how much that is. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now. So you should be seeing the results of our poll. So you can see that nearly half of our participants in today's webinar have 80% or more of their data used. Not as many. No one has less than 20%. So it's a really good thing to know how much data you have. And I'll close this. So there are two pieces of information that I want you to remember from doing this exercise. One, there are limits to the amount of data that you can have in your system. The second thing that I want you to know is that if you have too much data, your system is going to run slower. So for example, if you have 20,000 contact records in your system, you're going to, and then you do a search, it's going to have to look through all of those contact records in addition to all of the rest of your system to return the results. So the more data you have, the harder that it is, or the slower that your system may run. So information is really very powerful. You can learn more about your company in your company information page to gain an even better understanding. So when you're in setup, if you click on company information, you can learn that as well. So now that we know how much data you have, let's spend some time about the different types of data. Data comes in several types. There's good data, excess data, and bad data. Good data. Good data is the gold standard. Good data allows you to fully see your system and know what's going on at every level. Good data might be a volunteer opportunity with all the necessary fields completed, related connections marked with the appropriate attendance status, and hours reported. Records with good data are reliable and give you the confidence that you need to tell your story. The more data that you have, the more good data that you have, the more valuable it becomes. There's excess data. Now, while this is not bad data, excess data is just that. It's data that's neither good nor bad. It's just there in your system. You might have contacts or volunteers that are still marked as active who haven't logged into your system in a couple years, maybe never. You might have organizations who have volunteer opportunities that have come and gone, but don't have anything current. This is the data that you want to evaluate carefully when your storage gets really high. At some point, you may need to do something about this data, but it might not be today. Bad data. So bad data can make it difficult to really know your system. One big culprit in many systems are orphaned records. These become troublesome and can affect the actual integrity of your system. So I want to tell you all a story. So I worked at a nonprofit some years ago, and when I first learned to import, I managed to import a bunch of contact records without organizations. To me, no big deal. I could use them how I needed. I could report on them. Life was good. So I left that organization and my account was then deactivated, which that's exactly what should have happened. However, it became a problem because those contacts actually no longer showed up in any reports. No one could edit them because the owner was inactive. The only way to make changes was to reactivate me, export the data, and then re-import it. Contact records that have no accounts are actually private and are only available to the owner in reporting, so that makes them pretty hard to find if you aren't the owner. Sometimes, without doing a system check, you may never even know that you have any bad data. Throughout our series, we're going to address different tools and tips for all of these types of data, focusing on bad. But today, we just want you to get thinking about all of your data, but especially that bad data. What really is bad data? So we're going to talk about 5 different types of bad data. So the first one being duplicates. Multiples of the same can become confusing. You might want to make a new connection, but which volunteer should you use if you have 4 of the Joe Smiths? All opportunities that have the same names can cloud volunteers' interest. How many hours were reported last year? Can you trust what you're reporting to funders? It becomes really easy to inflate your results if you have double the number of connections or hours or opportunities or even contacts. Another type of bad data are confirmed volunteers with inconsistent hours. Let's say you have a volunteer who is confirmed with hours attended and verified for a to be scheduled volunteer opportunity, and the hours were not actually updated for the actual time volunteered. There could be hundreds, even thousands of hours recorded for that volunteer because that span, the hours that get calculated would be for the entire duration of that volunteer opportunity. We talked a little bit about orphaned records and how contacts can be a problem, but there's a lot of different examples of when orphaned records can be an issue. Volunteer occurrences without volunteer opportunities, contacts without accounts or organizations, volunteer opportunities without managing organizations, or registration answers without contacts. All of these are examples of data that is actually missing that context to allow it to be useful. So another type of bad data is inconsistent entries. So we're all human, and there are times when humans don't fill in the fields all in the same way. So I live in Michigan. So you might have the state filled in with MI, which is the state abbreviation, or Michigan with a capital M or a lowercase m, or even Mich, M-I-C-H. There are times when even you might see Detroit or Kalamazoo or some other city listed in the state field. Now, while this might not seem like a big deal, let's say you wanted to know all of the contacts that were in the state of Michigan. What would be the best way to narrow that search to get all of those different possibilities? Bad data, not only being wrong, can be very time consuming. The final type of bad data that I want to talk about is gibberish. So let's say you need to gather some additional information from your organizations or your volunteers, and it's very important to you. So you are going to require some open text fields on registrations. However, some people don't think that those answers are quite as important to them as they are to you. So you might see ASDF as a common response. This is gibberish, and it's not going to help you get the data that you need. So I have one more poll, and I am curious because we just went through 5 different types of bad data. So what I'm interested in hearing is, what type of bad data do you think is the greatest threat to your organization? So let's go ahead and see that. Feel free to fill that out. I'll see about if I can play my music again for you guys. Oh, we're getting closer. All right, 10 more seconds, guys. All right, thanks everyone who participated. I'm going to go ahead and close that. And I really think this is really telling. Now, all of these are bad, but no one thinks that they have any problems with most of those types of data. So this is really enlightening to me. So I really want to thank you for sharing that information with us. So as we move through this training series, now that you know what bad data is, we're going to dig deeper into bad data. And next week, we're going to take a look at how to find that bad data. And so I want to thank you, and I am actually going to hand it over to Melissa for a moment to talk about the virtual admin pilot program.
Thank you so much, Libby, and thank you for that information on data in your system and system administration. And thank you all for attending today. We hope you enjoyed it and it was informative. And you'll notice in your handout screen, there is also information on our virtual administrator pilot. So if everything that Libby's been saying today rings true with you and you would like some additional help, we are happy to offer that, and it is a pilot program right now with different levels, everything from a basic maintenance task required to keep your system healthy with an initial consultation period with Libby, all the way up to basically a half-time administrator for your system. So feel free to reach out with questions, information, and as we mentioned, we really want to be respectful of everyone's time. So we appreciate you giving us 20 minutes out of your day today to try and help you make your system better and make it run better. And we promise that the next 3 sessions will be just as quick and informative. Be sure to check Zendesk after the presentation today. There will be a detailed slide deck to go through and look in case you missed anything during the presentation today, and check your system. And obviously, as we go on to actually getting rid of that bad data, the details will be more important as we go along. There will also be a recording of today's session, so if you have someone that missed today's session, they can listen to it and catch up and do the homework and be ready for next week. Jenny, Olivia, anything else you'd like to add before we close this out?
No, I just want to thank everyone for coming and giving me 20 minutes of your day. And I'm actually surprised I fit it in within 18 minutes. So I want to thank everybody and have a wonderful day. And thanks, Melissa.
Thank you, Libby.
All right.
Goodbye.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.